Sunday and welcome to the garden. Welcome to my backyard garden. You know, I haven't done this type of thing, I don't think, since I've been doing this, but I just thought today, what if we just wander around the garden and talk gardening? What if you just send me all those questions that have been building up inside for the last week, or things you've run across in your garden, things you've seen, and ask me those questions and we'll do everything we can to answer them. So I thought that would be a fun way to get through today's talk. And in the meantime, I know that Joe's got lots of questions because he's always got lots of questions. And I also know that we can look around at the garden and see all the things that have happened. The one thing I wanted to say at the start is that we did get some more rain this weekend. But in all honesty, outside of the fact that we're dealing with a little bit more pests and pathogens, as I've mentioned the last couple of weeks, we actually appreciated that rain because it wasn't a massive flooding type rain. It was just enough to wet the ground again. It was just enough to get all of my baby plants and all of my pots watered. And so I'm guessing you're probably dealing with that too. It's kind of nice when I think about, I'm still putting plants in the ground. I'm still putting seeds in the ground. As a matter of fact, last night, I spoke with some of my other experienced gardener friends and our friends that have been pretty experienced paying attention to the weather. And there was a real conversation about the fact that it's very different here in May than what we're used to. It's definitely cooler. There's still rain coming. So it's been a different year. And so I'm curious to know what your questions that you have. So let's just get started.
I've got a couple questions. Some questions are already coming in. If you ask a question, if someone asks a question, I'll just read it to you. You can answer it. When it's time to wrap up, I'm going to ask you this question. So get prepared. What can someone do today if they want to start?
Yes.
Don't answer that yet.
I'm not going to answer that right now, but
Crystal,
now's a fantastic
Crystal
time to get
starts
started.
us off. She says, with a really small garden, keep that in mind. She's got a small garden.
Mm-hmm.
What are the best edibles to grow in Corpus Christi, South Texas, in the heat of the summer?
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we can grow in the heat of the summer. And let's do that back here because I have some stuff growing back here that does well in the heat of the summer. Okra. Okra is a fantastic plant to grow in the summer. It's beautiful. So even if you end up deciding not to eat all of the okra, you can grow this beautiful plant. The flowers and the leaves are all edible to this plant. Look how beautiful that could be if you added that to a mix of greens, to a soup you're making, to even a salad, a summer salad. So these are beautiful plants and they're great to grow. You can start them by seed right now. You can start them by putting a transplant in right now. Other things that are good to grow right now are black-eyed peas or purple hull peas. Now, I actually don't have any of those growing here in this garden right now, but I have quite a few beautiful, massive green plants out at the farm. So black-eyed peas are a good one. Another one that a lot of people don't know about, and I don't think I have any here that are big enough to show off, is the, let's walk this way, is the roselle plant. And the roselle plant is related to the okra. It's also related to cotton and hibiscus. And everyone knows that we grow cotton and hibiscus really well in this part of South Texas. So roselle is a plant that puts on beautiful, beautiful flowers. It's very similar to the okra in terms of the way that it leaves. However, it's much bushier. It's a bigger, bushier plant. Whereas an okra is one stalk with some nice leaves off the side of it, and the flowers come up in the in-between splits, right? Well, the roselle grows up into a massive bushing plant, and it's beautiful, kind of like the hibiscus. If you grow hibiscus, you know what I'm talking about. In fact, a lot of people call roselle the edible hibiscus. So if you've ever drank any hibiscus tea, you're technically drinking roselle. That's what you're actually drinking. Now, roselle is just a simply beautiful, beautiful plant. Every part of it is edible, and it grows these caracuses. So that's basically like after the flower comes, it puts on this little pod, kind of similar to the okra if you think about it, but it's a different shaped pod. And those pods are used to make jellies and lip balms and all kinds of great stuff like that. I had a really good time getting to know Roselle while I was in Hawaii, in Kauai, and they grow it really well down there. So as you can imagine, a somewhat tropical place, even subtropical, is going to do really well. Great plant to grow in the summertime. You'll have it all the way through to the freeze season.
The question was, what food, edible food, can you grow in the summer here in South Texas? Sid checked in. I know that she's growing a lot. Sid, what are you intending on growing this summer?
Yes.
And as much involvement as you've had in the food system, the joke over the years, but I think you've mentioned recently that this is changing and shifting, is it's okra and eggplant. Okra and eggplant, because
Yes.
the temperatures are so high.
Yes.
But Aislinn, didn't I hear you say recently that seems to be shifting a little bit?
Well, the timing is just a little different. We're still going to deal with this.
And again, anyone that asks a question, I'm just going to read it to Aislinn. We're going to answer questions all morning.
Right, yeah. So just the only thing is the timing. So in the past, I would have said pretty much we're done planting in May. Well, we are heavily still planting in May, and now we're about to enter June, and we're going to still keep planting those things. The roselle, the eggplant. Now, if you're tending a small little baby plant start type of situation like I am, if you've got an indoor greenhouse where you're starting
Are you
your own
talking about
seeds and
your
things like
your
that,
plants over
yes,
here?
my
that
little
are...
baby plants right there are doing really well. If you're doing those types of things, then you might go ahead and still continue to try seed starting some eggplant. But if you've got some small eggplant babies, go ahead and put those in the ground. They'll be just fine. The thing you have to remember is that as we start entering the real summer heat, you are going to have to make sure those plants stay watered through the summertime. Even if they're not producing fruit during the summertime, even if their flowers are setting but then falling off, that's okay, because the plant itself will continue to grow if you give it the investment of the water through the summertime. And then the moment those temperatures drop, and here's the thing, because things have shifted so much this year, we don't really know when the temperatures will drop. In the past, it would have been at the end of September, we're trying to heavily start getting things in the ground. Now it might be at the end of October when we start trying to heavily get things in the ground. So we're going to watch how this summer goes. We're going to keep talking about it, and we're going to keep planting things. Other things that I have even just recently suggested to go ahead and plant, and I actually planted some of them on my own, kind of an accident because I accidentally left my seeds out in the rain recently, and so I had to plant a bunch of seeds. But those short day summer squash, like if you're doing 50-day summer squash, you might actually have more luck as we get through this season with the new baby starts that you get. And the reason is because as we move through May and into June, I expect, don't quote me on this necessarily, because we don't exactly know everything that's happening with the weather, but as we shift around, we're likely to see drying. Hot, dry summer, and some thunderstorms, some things like that, but hot, dry summer, which means some of those squash might actually do better as you enter into the summer, as long as you make sure that they've got just enough water to stay alive when the heat of the summer starts to hit. And of course, don't forget your basil. I mean, look, basil. And one of the things that you can do right now is, as you begin trimming your basil, and as you begin seeing and I mentioned that I wanted to talk about this anyways, that you begin deadheading your seeds, deadheading your flowers, deadheading your basil, and spreading those seeds right back into the ground again. But basil is definitely something you can seed right now, and it's definitely something that you can harvest throughout the entire summer. And continue to keep putting your tomato plants in the ground, your eggplants in the ground, your peppers in the ground, if you're going to be willing to water them if we start to see the drop off into the summer drought season again. But keep that in mind. And even though we've had a lot of rain and I'm not watering my garden, I am watering my pots, because if you go just a few days without watering your pots, you'll start to see a diminishment of the happiness of those particular plants. Now, tomatoes in pots, what you want to do is give them a really good flood of water, and then let them dry out for a few days. Don't water them again. Then give them a really good flood of water, then let them dry out. And that's what you do with your pots and that's really what you do with your garden too. It's just that we've already had the flood recently with our gardens that are plants that are in the ground. Okay, got more questions for me?
Ask a question. I'll read it to you, Aislinn. Jenny asks, and this I'm sure is common even for non-gardeners, all the rain is bringing fire ants. What can we do?
Okay, fire ants. I pretty much ignore the fire ants, but I've got a lot of gardens to work in, and I also don't have baby children that are trying to work in that garden as well. So what I do is I actually kick the mounds, just kind of stir them up, and I just repeatedly keep doing that. And what ends up happening is that they move, and most of the time they move out of areas where I don't want them to be anyways. Another option, but this is an option you can't use. Okay, so when you're using different types of direct to the plant management of insects, there are most of the products we use, if it rains, you've wasted your money. So you need to pay attention to the weather as it relates to putting these things in the ground. So if we're talking about diatomaceous earth, if you went out and spread diatomaceous earth on Friday all over your yard and in your garden, it's no good already. After a couple of days of rain, it loses its efficacy, right? Okay, so this is the same thing with another product that we use for fire ants. We also use them for cut ants and harvester ants that can cause real problems in your gardens. And that is, it's called Come and Get It. It's a product that you can get at most of the local nursery stores. You probably can get it at the box store as well. And it is granular spinosad, okay? Spinosad is an organic broad spray that you can use for the pests in your garden. However, for those of you that have listened to this, and even if you haven't, I'm not a proponent of broad spraying. And the reason is because I know, I can see it, and I'm sure you can too. We have issues with pollination. We just simply don't have enough pollinators to help us keep a really fruitful garden. I think it's part of everything. I think the freeze is definitely a part of it, but last summer, when we didn't have a freeze, I also had issues with pollinators, okay? So spinosad, and here's the thing that we need to understand about any kind of spray, anything we use, the goal outside of very specific repellent type things is to kill insects. Even if it's not poisonous to you, even if it doesn't hurt you, the person, or your children, or it's not something you're afraid to eat because it's safe, right? It still has a job, and its job is to kill insects. And you don't want it to kill the good insects, right? Okay, so that's the reason why I use granular spinosad. And the truth of the matter is, it's simply basically like sawdust that they soak in spinosad so that you can directly drop it on. And it's no different than what you would have used when you're using the poisons, the non-organic poisons to kill fire ants. It's the exact same thing. So you stir up the mound, you sprinkle this organic granular spinosad, come and take it, come and get it, come and take it, something like that is the name of the brand. I think it's Fertilome is the main brand of it. It's in a blue bag.
I know, right? It's at Turner's. I bought it there several times.
Right. So local nurseries, box stores, all of that kind of stuff. It's a great option for that. You can also do things like pour a boiling pot of water on it. You can also pour direct actual orange oil. But the two things I will tell you about that is, if you pour boiling water on it, you're going to kill other things around it. And if you use granular spinosad, if you use the orange oil, there's two things to know about that. Number one, the orange oil is really expensive for the amount of work it does. Granular spinosad can be expensive too, but the orange oil is really expensive for the amount you have to use for it. And in addition to that, if you don't put the orange oil on at the right time, and if you hit the roots of some plants, it will also kill your plants as well. So I believe the real true answer is to either stir them up and ignore them, or stir them up and put granular spinosad on them.
What is the purple long thing over your right shoulder?
Oh, yes, I'm so glad. Okay, this is a red noodle yard long bean, and I actually need to pick it. And these are fantastic beans. They are poling beans, so they're super fun for kids. So if you're growing and you've got trellising systems and kids that like to cook and be a part of your garden, these are great. This is the red noodle variety, but any yard-long bean will do this exact same thing. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for the yard-long beans. I think sometimes they call them runner beans as well. I believe I bought this seed from Baker Creek Heirloom, although I also bought several runner beans, yard-long bean seeds from Johnny's Select Seeds as well. So these are good. We actually love to use them most for stir fry. Stir fry is our favorite thing to use them for. So like the other night, Joe made a fantastic fried rice. I know we'll talk about that in the podcast, Dinner Table Talks. If you've never listened before, we launch that every Monday morning. So there's a new podcast coming out tomorrow morning. We're really excited about that. We have a guest this time. So all that being said, we will talk about the fried rice again in the future and all of the different fantastic things that went into it. This is a really good bean for stir frying, but then you also just cooked it the other night to go alongside some fish tacos, and we'll talk about that as well. But would you just give us a little bit of details about how you cook this? Because this is a little bit different than a regular bean.
For the fried rice,
the other version.
That was a kind of a glaze. I blanched them. You blanched them. So that means I put them into boiling water for 2 minutes and then quickly take them out, let them cool, and then I put them in a glaze. I was complementing a Mexican flavored dish, so I used the Mexican flavor profile with a little bit of honey in my cast iron skillet for, I can't tell you how many minutes. I'm continuing to taste it until it's done, almost done, and then I stop because it continues to cook for a little while. It was...
they were great.
They were great.
You don't need very many of them, though, because you can see that this is like a lot of beans.
Quick follow-up. Crystal's asking, is the yard long that you're holding, is it fully edible, or do you open it up and pick the beans out?
It's fully edible, just like this.
I cut it into like green bean length pieces and put that into a fried rice. And
now you can let them grow super long like this, but they're definitely
they get tougher,
meatier and tougher.
Yeah, the skin gets tougher.
So if you want to pick them more like this size to cook with, and then once you get them to this size, this may be the ones that you can eat these. But what I've done, because I've had so many of them, is that I actually have allowed these to be the ones that dry out so that I then have seeds for next season.
Oh, interesting.
Because I'm absolutely going to be reseeding my own seeds for two reasons. One, because it's less expensive to have a lot of my own seeds. But two, because now I have a plant that is acclimated to our crazy South Texas subtropical weather, right? So that means that this is going to be more acclimated in my area. It's going to grow better in my area, even though I will continue to buy fresh new seeds as well. I'm real particular about reseeding. I think it is an essential part of being that intuitive, lazy gardener, the permaculture gardener. A lot of what's growing in this garden, actually in any garden that I grow, is a reseed. All my basil, all my salvias, all of those things are all reseeds. All my sunflowers are reseeds. All of that part is an important part of the permaculture intuitive lazy gardener style.
Aislyn's doing an Ask Me Anything. If you'll type out your question, I'll read it to her. I have a question for you. And listen to the question.
Okay.
What is your single one favorite plant to grow in your garden? And I know that you don't do monoculture, but what is your favorite plant that when it yields, you feel great, it's a success?
I was pretty happy about my Brussels sprouts this year.
I know. I thought you might even say that, and I thought you could say cauliflower or broccoli.
Yeah, cauliflower. You know, if I had to be honest, my favorite thing to grow is my flowers. I love my flowers. They make me want to garden. They make me, oh my God, you guys, the farm flowers are phenomenal. I mean, like, shocking. If you drove by the farm, there's no way you couldn't notice how beautiful this farm is with all the flowers and all the great stuff. The Brussels sprout was a big deal. I grew corn for the first time this year, and I was blown away by the amount of gorgeous, beautiful, delicious corn that I grew right in my own backyard.
Tiffany asks a great question. I'm going to rephrase it a little bit. When you're starting out and you don't exactly know the difference between plants and weeds, there are apps available nowadays where you can use an app to identify what's a plant, what's a weed. I'll just ask her a question. Do you use an app to identify what's a plant versus a weed, or do you do something else?
I use experienced gardeners, and I don't use an app. I use, the app that I use is actually Google Lens. I have found, well, first of all, a lot of those apps cost money, and I don't think they're worth the price. Because I don't...
Even for a beginner, though, that doesn't have the experience?
Even for a beginner that doesn't have the
interesting.
experience. I think that you're going to find that you're going to get a lot of answers to a question that are not the right answer. And that's what I've found. And I've used the free version, and then I've already done 7 plants, so I'm up to the upgrades portion. That's not something I want to invest in. I don't feel like it's worth the investment, but I also, I just wouldn't stress yourself out about it. I don't know how to explain that exactly, but I can say that I don't worry about, let the weeds grow. And that's one of the things I wanted to say about this season, this time that we're in right now, is stop and look at your gardens. Look at your gardens every single day. Right now we're in the time of year when we're not only harvesting our fruits, but we're also cutting back plants when they're starting to get too tall and getting too overgrown in certain areas. We're also deadheading our flowers so that we can collect the seeds, so that we can use the seeds. So while we're out there, look around. And if you don't know something, don't just pull it out. Learn it. Learn how it grows. Learn if it can be a problem. Weeds are the interesting thing about weeds is 9 times out of 10, the weed that's growing in our garden, somebody planted somewhere on purpose, and now it's just growing everywhere, right? So it's actually not a bad plant. Sometimes when you go to investigate what a weed is, you'll find out it's something that you could actually buy at the nursery. And so then if you watch the way it grows, like it's a low growing plant, okay, come over here and look. This is a great example, and I wanted to show you guys this actually.
Hey Tiffany, while we're looking for that, can you clarify that question? I don't understand what you mean. How do we learn it?
You get down on the ground and you look at it, and you leave it alone and you watch it. That's part of the answer to that. Okay, so here I am. I'm sitting here looking at this, right? Then some people might say, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and weed this area and get it all cleaned up so I don't really have to deal with it. Now look. Okay, so I can look at that and I can say, oh, that looks like it must be some sort of a palm. I can't think of anything that I planted that would look like that. Okay, so that one, I'm going to get rid of that one. But what about these? What about that and that and that and that?
Yeah, those look to me like they could be the germination of something purposeful. I wouldn't know what to do with those little green things right there.
That is purslane, and purslane is a very delicious edible plant, edible flower that people purposefully plant that you can buy starts from at the nursery. I didn't plant it back here on purpose, but I let one of them grow in the past, and I let it seed, which means as the summer sets in, it starts to grow, it starts to cover the soil, and then I can harvest it if I choose to. But the only way I could know that is if I was willing to let it grow and get to know what's happening. And you can tell when you start to see that something is an obnoxious grass, then that's when you get it out of there before it seeds, right? So watching it come up is not harmful. Watching these little things come up. I don't know what these are. I can't tell. But I'm watching to see what's happening, and then if I watch them to grow, now the one thing I would do would be, okay, well, I don't know whether this is a weed or not, right? I actually know this is not a weed. But if I didn't know, then you could use the Google Lens. So I download the Google Lens. Now, I know that a lot of people don't love Google these days anymore, so I don't really have another free option for you. And I don't have an app to suggest because I've not been happy with any of them. I don't think they know the plants well enough. You have to have enough people participating in an app in order for an app to actually have the answers for you. And the good thing about the Google Lens is the Google Lens has everything that's on the internet. And you do have to do a little bit of your own research and investigating, but the best way to get to know things is to watch them, and not only to watch them, but to watch other growers and to see how they handle things, and to stop worrying yourself so much about weeds. Weeds are simply plants, and they're okay, and you want life in your garden. And if we stop stressing ourselves out about weeds, then we learn what the weeds are, and then it's easier to get rid of the ones we don't want in our garden.
How large was your very first garden that you would say was a serious garden that you were taking more seriously than a couple pots on the back porch?
Probably about the size of one of these beds.
And how long ago was that?
20 years ago.
How many seasons, years did you have to cultivate that garden before you had some kind of epiphany or thought that, hey, I kind of am really learning and I know a little bit more and I know what I'm doing now in a way that I didn't when I first began?
20 years. It's a process. It's a lifestyle.
Okay, how long would it take?
It's not a turnkey situation. It's a lifestyle, and that's the reason why I teach the way I teach. Yeah.
How long would it take for me to garden before I can kind of identify that as purslane the way that you did so easily?
20 years.
Okay.
I have no idea. Like, that's a good guess. I mean, I don't have a guess.
And I guess there are some people that are more minded in identifying things than other people.
Right. Yeah. And I think that after that freeze, I don't know. I don't think some people have more capabilities than others. I think that if it's something you want and it's something you love and you love nature and you love looking at your garden, it's easy for you. If that's a choice that you make, that this is something you want to know, then it's easy for you. It's as easy for you. I'm not magic. I don't have any kind of special. Now, it might be said that part of my purpose on earth is to plant seeds and grow life, right? So of course I have kind of like an internal passion and core for this because that's what God put me on this planet for. But I can imagine that anyone that makes a choice and anyone that begins to see their garden and their spaces as literal living consciousness, living beings, just like they are, then you begin to go, okay, well, I don't want to just kill everything. I want to learn it first, and then I decide whether it's good or bad. And I think that that's a part of the way that I think. Like, I don't go into anything, including my own body, and just kill it or cut it out. That's not the answer for me. The answer for me is to learn it, feel it, and see what I can do to heal it myself. And then if I need some support, I go to the experts and ask them, can you help me out with this? And Google Lens is the best option in my opinion.
In your gardening consultations, how often do you come across people that get frustrated with it to the point of wanting to not do it anymore?
Well, in my consultations, I don't run into that too often. Most of the time, because I give people permission to just be what it is. Like, you do one small thing in your garden and you're moving in the right direction.
Okay,
how often do I run across people that give up? When I worked for Grow Local South Texas, I can't tell you the number of people that would come in guns a-blazing. Like, yeah, we're going to sit up at the farmer's market and we're going to grow at the garden and we're going to da-da-da-da-da. And within one season, they were already done.
It just seems like when you and I, let's say we go out for dinner and we run into someone, and I hear this a lot. Oh my God, Aislinn, I enjoy your Instagram feed. Oh my God, Aislinn, I enjoy what you're up to, and I admire so much what you do in bringing food to your family and all of the things. I could never do it. I have such a black thumb. I have killed everything I ever tried to grow. And I wonder how, what kind of encouragement you give to people, because you had to have come up with something. You hear that kind of thing so often, or at least when I'm around you. What kind of encouragement do you give people to continue in it?
If you choose to grow and you choose to be a part of it and you choose to learn from it, then anytime you say to yourself, I can't do it, I'm not as good, I have a black thumb, you're going to get exactly that. That's just, and that's my whole philosophy on life for that
Not just gardening, anything.
Yeah, that's my whole philosophy on life or whatever. And the fact of the matter is, and this is one of the things even in terms of like kind of the wealth code stuff I've been working on, the energy code stuff I've been working on, the thing about it is that we have decided that the hard work is the answer. But really, it's not the hard work that's the answer to solving the problems, even in our garden. It's the internal work that's the problem. And if we're not willing to do the internal work, which is most of the time the issue, we're not willing to say, you know what, I can learn how to do it. If Aislinn can learn how to do it, I can learn how to do it. If, I don't know, whoever you name online that does gardening, whatever, if they can do it, I can do it. If anyone can do it, I can do it.
Well, I can tell you that.
That's internal. That's an internal situation, and that requires work. It's internal work. But most of the time people go, well, we're just not working hard enough. I'm not doing enough labor. I'm not getting out there in my garden and blah, 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 which is why I can't do it right. No, that's not why you can't do it right. The reason you can't do it right is because you haven't created a situation where you love what you do, and you know that you're good at it, and you know that anything you don't know today, you'll learn tomorrow. And that's what I've learned over the years, and that's what I teach in my consults, is to give yourself permission to learn and to fail, and that there's nothing wrong with you if you do fail, because I promise you, I fail. Like, there's novice gardeners all over South Texas right now that have tomatoes coming out their ears, and I've harvested like a few pounds of tomatoes so far, right?
Yeah,
so if I treated myself that way in my internal core, meanwhile I've got corn, potatoes, onions, leeks, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, all the things coming out my ears.
You're answering questions. Anyone can ask anything, and I'll read it to you. Tiffany has a question, and don't forget the last question that I'm going to ask before we maybe wrap it up, whenever you're ready to do that, is what can I do today to start? But Tiffany asks, do you can any of your vegetables?
I do not can them, but we do can them. My mom is the processor for me, and it's nice to have support. I will tell you that makes a huge difference. Let me walk over here so we can get into this nice space up here. Speaking of okra and beautiful okra flowers and beautiful okra plants, this is a reseed, by the way. I didn't buy those seeds or anything like that. Canning is an essential part of it. Once you get really to the point where you're growing a lot of produce, you got to do something with it. Even with me, like putting on farm to table events and selling my produce, we're still canning ridiculous amounts of food. So if you're not the canner yourself, find somebody within your support system that's willing to work with you and that loves doing it. I can tell you that that's been a huge part of what I've done, and that's a huge part of that internal stuff for me, and shifting the internal, that I have the support that I need. So Joe cooks fantastic meals. My mom cans the foods. My dad helps me with some of the machine work or infrastructure or things like that. So I have built a support system because I know that that's what's required in order for us to have the most success. And the more beauty you bring into the lives of your support system, the more health you bring into the lives of your support system, the more support your system is willing to give you, where they don't feel resentful for the work that they're doing, right? They don't feel like they're doing too much while you're just out there playing in the garden. My family's seeing me do a lot of work. Do I hate it? Does it feel bad? Does it make me sick? Does it make me unhappy? No. It's beautiful. I enjoy it. And so because of that, I get that support. And yes, the canning part of it is an essential. The processing part of it, it may not even be canning. It may be freezing it. Whatever you do, pickling it, all of those things are essential parts of really making the most out of what you're growing.
To your previous point about what do you tell people that are frustrated with the process? Tiffany says, that's what's different for me this year. I've gone from hurry up and be ready to really enjoying the process. Is that your favorite part of gardening?
Yes.
Is it the yield? Hey, I got 25 pounds of broccoli. Or is it the process that you engage in?
It's the lifestyle.
Elaborate.
It's not only the lifestyle, but it's a part of being a part of a network that I know is getting to a place where they're bringing it into their life, and like Tiffany said, things are shifting in their mind. I think Sid would say that just us having this interaction on a regular basis, talking about things, and me encouraging people, and that's a huge part of why I garden coach, garden consultants, all of that thing. I do all of that in order to support your encouragement, to inspire you. But every single piece of that, everything I give returns to me. So I get inspired by you saying you're inspired. I get inspired by you showing me all the beautiful pictures of all the produce that you grew. And yes, of course, I get inspired by the piles of delicious, beautiful food and people purchasing food and farm to table dinners and all of the things that are going on in our life. But yeah, I mean, and I mentioned this the other day, that I haven't gotten to a place where cleaning my house is like weeding, where I just take care of the stuff that matters. I don't stress out about it. I go about it with joy. I turn my music on, and now I'm to a place in life where it's time for me to begin thinking about my internal home the same way. How do I spruce it up? How do I take it easy on myself when I don't have the time to spruce it up, or I'm not feeling well enough to spruce it up? How do I just let it be okay to be in the lifestyle that I live? And part of that is going inside and telling myself everything's fine. Everything's okay. I've got this under control. I'm gonna fail. I'm gonna make mistakes. I'm gonna be triggered by stuff that irritates me. I'm gonna argue with my best friend. It's gonna happen. But at the end of the day, we're creating a life that is worth living and that we want to live. And we're not just enduring life, we're choosing our own adventure. And I'm choosing this adventure because it's fantastic.
The dog is making me laugh.
I love him so much. Like, he got his hair cut. He's all groomed up.
Okay, so the question I've been pimping, the question I've been suggesting that I might ask, and that is, okay, Aislinn, I'm all in now. I want to get started, and I understand that I'm not going to have 12 hugel culture beds in my backyard tomorrow. I just want to start today and begin the journey. What do I do?
Pick a spot right now, today. That's the spot I'm going to do. Lay some cardboard over the top of it. Weed eat it down to the ground. Lay some cardboard over the top of it.
Put something on top of the cardboard so it doesn't blow off.
Yep.
Right.
That's where you can start. Right now is a fantastic time to start getting yourself ready for your next gardens. I mean, I am anxious already, and yes, I'm harvesting like crazy. So if you're harvesting as much as I am, you might not have time to start a new garden now. But if you haven't yet and you're not, then now's the time to start. Now's the time to start your next garden because the ground is soft. There's a lot of moisture in the air. We're entering into that summer heat. So you're going to start killing the stuff down underneath that cardboard, and then that's when you start creating your layering system, the hugelculture layering system. That I don't want to spend a lot of time to talk about today. You can Google hugelculture.
You can hugel it.
You can hugel it on the Google. If you don't use Google, you can duck it too if you choose to. Whatever you choose to do.
Hooli, whatever.
Hooli, yeah, go to Hooli, totally, man. We're totally going to Rest Fest. I saw it, it's happening. Y'all don't even know what we're talking about, do you? It's okay. You should watch.
So you're talking about prepping for your future garden that you're going to plant when? If you're really thinking it out, at the end of summer when it's not so hot?
Probably at the end of September.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And start
getting it ready to plunge.
Watch videos of people that you know that are growing in your area. I've got an entire year I have an entire year plus a few months weekly of videos where you can learn about soil health, which is every single time someone suggests some situation of how to handle pests and pathogens, I always respond. The answer is healthy soil, healthy land. It's no different than the answer I gave for years and years and years about babies and having babies. Healthy mama, healthy baby, get internal, get healthy. Same thing with your garden. Get internal, get into the soil, create life in your soil, and then start adding the seeds in. And with every season, the more seeds you add, even if you add too many seeds, that's okay. It's a learning process. Someone asked me the other day again, how do you get all of those beautiful cosmos to grow in that beautiful color? Because I have all these cosmos growing out at the farm. We only have the yellow. Yes, the cosmo, it's a cosmo flower. I've got pinks and purples and whites, and I've got an array of the most beautiful cosmos. And the question that they asked me was, how do you get the colorful ones to grow? And I said, you plant more seeds. Listen, seeds are cheap. And planting seeds is the best way to lead the life that you choose to lead. Whether you're planting literal seeds or whether you're just planting seeds of happiness and love in your friend, or ideas in your neighborhood, or life in your child as they move on to the next phase of their own lives.
Getting nutritious, one has to learn how to read the back of food boxes and, nutrition information. Just hanging out with you, I've learned that reading the back of those seed packets
absolutely
is critical to learn how to do it.
Yep.
You just Google it and you'll figure it out. Crystal asks, why cardboard?
Because basically it's the easiest, cheapest way to block out the soil, and it's the safest way to block out the weeds and to kind of just start breaking it down.
I've seen plastic sheeting.
Carbon material is what we're talking about. Yeah, I don't use plastic sheeting. I mean, there is some plastic sheeting that is a little bit more bioavailable and not as potentially harmful to the earth and doesn't literally kill everything in the soil. No, I'm not trying to kill everything in the soil. I'm just trying to block things out. I want the life in the soil to still be alive. So cardboard is just carbon, which is the exact same thing as mulch. And the exact same thing as the soil that you're growing.
That's why you don't use plastic. You can leave the cardboard there when you're done.
Right.
It's just going to decompose and become carbon for what you put on top of it.
Right.
But you're trying to kill the green layer of, say, St. Augustine grass or weeds or whatever by blocking the light from it.
Yep, exactly. And we use our chickens to start. So if you've got chickens, the first thing you should do is turn your chickens out on the space that you plan on gardening next. And then you still might, if you're not quite ready to build it up, you still might put cardboard on top of that, which is actually how we built this particular bed. And then in addition to that, cardboard will actually keep the moisture in the soil. Because if you just weeded it down to the dirt and then just leave it, and then we go for 5 weeks without any rain, then all you've done is just kill the soil. Now you just have compacted clay, right? But if you put cardboard down, you actually help to keep the moisture that's already in the soil down underneath there. And you keep the soil alive. And you can see that whenever I get down into my mulch here, and of course it's really wet here, and it's been really wet here, but look how much moisture is down in this soil down here. I mean, it's literally wet down inside there. So that's what I'm trying to do, is to create the life down inside the soil. The life in the soil makes the soil healthy, and that is the best way to solve really any problems that you're dealing with in life. Any life problems can be solved with mulch. That's what I said it.
Well, while you
I'm just kidding. Any life problems can be solved with planting seeds.
Well, while you were philosophizing, Sid said something that might be a good wrap up. Gardening has saved me. Not even an exaggeration. # looking at you 2020.
Abso-freaking-lutely. I for those of you that haven't seen it, I have a TED Talk that I did in last year, October 2020, called My Garden is a Sanctuary, and my garden has saved my life. I have, in my lifetime, some pretty severe PTSD, of which I'm breaking through all kinds of barriers and boundaries now, and not feeling connected to that the way that I used to. But I'll tell you that the reason I feel that way and how I got to where I am today is because I gardened and I connected with nature, and it was a really important part of me. And I got dirt under my nails, and I created the healthy microbiome in my gut and all around my body and in my life and in my home, and I drink beautiful smoothies with the stuff I grow in my backyard, and I eat beautiful meals with the food that my family grows and prepares and helps me process. And I have just it's health. Well, I have said this, and I will say it over and over and over again. Wellness is a lifestyle. It's not something you can pick or point. It's not a pill you can take. It's not mind separate from body, separate from spirit. It's mind, body, spirit, and all of that. And the greatest place to begin to understand that and to begin to see it effectively every single day is to get down in the dirt in the gardens. And I will tell you, the interesting thing about weeding is that weeding is actually technically my favorite thing to do in the garden. I would prefer weeding over seeding. I would prefer weeding over harvesting. I love to just get down in the dirt and play with my plants, pull plants out, and get soil under my fingernails. All right, that's it. Please tune in to the podcast. If you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel, because this replay will be up on my YouTube channel next week. Today's will go up, last week's will go up today. But if you're watching this right now, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Bye guys, love you.